Hello, it's Lion here with Hobbies Man once again, and today we're going to be doing another book review, the first book review of the year. Today we're going to be looking at Pirates of Venus by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Now, Pirates of Venus is the first book in the Amtor series. Amtor is the Venusian name for Venus, so it's like Earth, basically, or Terra, or whatever you want to call our planet. This was published in 1983, and it's the first book in, well, this is the 8th printing of this book, of this version, which was printed in 1983. And this is the first book in the Venus series, or the Amtor series. And it's followed by Lost on Venus, Carson of Venus, Escape on Venus, and Wizard of Venus. And it's very similar to Edgar Rice Burroughs' other works, like John Carter of Mars, right? So, yeah, it's published by Ace, as you guys can see right there. There you go. The demographic here is adult, I'm guessing. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like very adult, but it is not like YA. So there you go, whatever that might be. And the genres here are just sci-fantasy, because most of these works are sci-fantasy. These are the early science fiction works. Basically, planetary romance or Sword and Planet could be other names for this genre, but it is basically just science fiction with fantasy elements. And this does not have an adaptation, although honestly, I'm not sure why Edgar Rice Burroughs' works, besides Tarzan, have not gotten good adaptations. Disney did do the John Carter of Mars adaptation movie, which they just called John Carter. But people say that they didn't actually do good marketing for that series because they had just acquired Star Wars when they finished making that movie, so there was no point, because why would you take the time to build a new IP when you already bought the biggest sci-fi IP for teenage boys, right? So, but I do think that just about everything by Edgar Rice Burroughs should have adaptations. I know a lot of people want, IRL live action adaptations, but honestly, animated adaptations would probably be the best in my opinion. So that's just me. But yeah, this book specifically does not have an adaptation. But it does have some comic books that go along with it that the Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated company is publishing recently, or had published recently, if I remember correctly. So there you go. In terms of a premise, we have Carson Napier, who is this guy from Earth. He was raised in India, and he traveled across the world, and he has a lot of special abilities that most people do not. He eventually wants to go to Mars, because why not? And he builds a rocket in like the 1910s. And, well, he shoots it into space. And once he's in space, he actually ends up crashing into Venus instead of flying to Mars. Now, if you think about it, how the hell did he manage to do that? Because if Earth is in the center, Mars is up and Venus is down, right? Or not really, but like more or less. So he must have miscalculated really, really badly, or he probably flew that way and he thought Mars was here, but it wasn't. So he had to keep going, and he ended up on Venus the other way, right? But I don't know. It wasn't really that clear, but he ends up on Venus instead of Mars. And he has to do the whole thing that everyone has to do in a John Carter, in an Edgar Rice Burroughs book, which is assimilate to the culture, develop the skills necessary to live in this culture, find a woman, fall in love with a woman, and then go on a perilous journey for this woman, right? So it is what it is. It's really fun. It's really enjoyable. And honestly, Edgar Rice Burroughs is probably my favorite author because every time I read one of his books, I just end up with having a lot of fun, right? So yeah, the plot line here starts with Edgar Rice Burroughs, because he self-inserts himself into books in a lot of different ways. In the John Carter books, he was the nephew of John Carter. And in this one, he is someone that just works in Tarzana, California. And he gets approached by Carson Napier. And stuff happens, and so we get a quick introduction to the main character. And then we go down to Mexico, I think Baja California, probably, because that's right next to California. And they create a rocket, and they launch it. And he goes on this trip by himself And we get a lot of details of his trip and how things are going. And it sounds pretty accurate to real life. So I don't know if it was like because there was a lot of research of this already at that point, or because it was during the space race. I don't think so, because the space race was in the 60s, and this story was from the like 1910s. So I'm guessing it was just a lot of, well thought out research. But I'm not sure. He ends up on Venus. He meets the locals, who are called Vepagins, or Vepajons, I guess. I don't know really how to say it. And he basically becomes a prisoner, but he's a well-liked prisoner. He's not someone that's really a real prisoner per se, but he's not really allowed to go anywhere by himself. He assimilates into their culture. He learns their language. He knows their sciences and stuff like that. And he realizes that these people, because they've never been able to see the sun because of this thick, cloudy coverage, they don't understand basic navigational things the same way that Earthlings or maybe even Martians might. And so he kind of had to struggle with that. And he eventually meets a girl, of course. This girl happens to be someone related to the king of the Vepagins. And, well, he falls in love with her because that's how it works in these types of novels. And that is not the right thing to do, but he can't help it because he's in love, and love isn't logical or whatever. But he literally just like insta loves her because it's like he sees her and he's like, oh shit, she's hot. And then he falls in love with her, and she does it back, right? So eventually he becomes assimilated. He is released from his prison. He joins a family, and he and one of the people from this family go out to do some hunting. And while they're hunting, they actually end up being captured by this opposing force, and they end up in danger. And then they end up on a ship where they're being transported somewhere else. While on this ship, Carson makes some friends, and they create a coup, and then they escape, and they become pirates for a little bit. And the book ends with Carson being captured by another group of people. And, well, it's really unsure what's going to happen after that. But, there's 4 other books, so we can kind of guess what's going to happen, right? So, yeah, honestly, it was a really good plot line. There's a lot of world building. There's a lot of easy to understand, but very well thought out kind of things to be said and done about these non-existing people. And overall, it's a pretty fun story. Again, because it is one of the early books in the series, there really isn't too much going on action-wise, but a lot of it is mostly just enjoyable character work, and world building. So moving on to the characters, we have Carson Napier, who, like I said, he was raised in India. He learned how to astral project from some guru in India. He has a lot of different skills. He has sword fighting skills from Germany, and he can shoot guns from somewhere else. And he's some sort of navigator, and he's some sort of engineer, and all sorts of different things. We have Duran, Othar, Camelot, and Mintep, who are all Vepagins. They're all guys, and they're all kind of meaningful people. So Duran, Othar, and Camelot are the family or the group of men that initially find him and help him assimilate to their culture. While Mintep is the king of the Vepagins. There was a specific name for this guy, but I don't remember it. And I think it was Yong, and basically that means king, right? So we also have Gamtor, Chiron, and Zhog, which are 3 other not Vepagin people that he becomes friends with while they're trapped on this boat. There's Kajad, or Kadje, who is basically the antagonist. And then there's Duari, who is the woman that he's in love with. And, well, a lot of it is very similar to every other book that he has, right? So Carson is John Carter. Doran, Arthur, Camelot, and Mintep are all different versions, or, a variety of characters from his other works. Basically, they're all just Tars Tarkas. And then all the other people are just secondary characters. And Duare is, of course, the Deja Taurus equivalent. And, well, all of them are pretty cool. There's a very interesting social issue between Carson and Duari that initially is kind of upsetting, but it works out in the end for both of them, which is pretty cool. It kind of actually reminds me a little bit more of like Gorian stuff. So I reviewed the first book in the Gorian cycle, and a lot of the kind of like social faux pas that guy does are very similar to what Carson does here with Duari. So that first book in the Gorian cycle is pretty good. You guys should read it, although it does kind of get worse as it goes on. But it's kind of interesting. It's very similar to all of these other ones, right? So yeah, in terms of world building, there's a lot, actually. There's a lot of stuff going on. So it's very good and very fun. So first of all, the Amtorians think that Venus is a flat disk, and it has these like big cusps that go out. There's clouds, and they think that there's a center, which is nice and hot. There's a middle climate place, and then there's very cold regions elsewhere, right? And, well, that's not really the case because it makes no sense. Carson tries to explain to them, no, there's cold at the top and there's warmth in the middle, and what you guys think are different circular regions are actually not, and they don't really want to, understand what he's saying because they don't have any ways to think of different of things differently because they can't see the sun. They can't figure out that their world is circular, right? So it's kind of interesting how that works. There's a lot of different types of animals and things. There's Tarel, which is a special, like, very strong spider silk. There's Targos, which are giant spiders. There's Bastos, which are these, like, carnivorous buffaloes, and a bunch of other stuff. There's a lot of linguistic things that come up. And, of course, there's multiple races because that's just kind of how it works in Edgar Rice Burroughs' stuff. And honestly, it's very, very good. It's very, very enjoyable. In terms of a rating, this is a 4 out of 5. I think it's classic Edgar Rice Burroughs kind of works. And as always, it's very, very fun and very, very enjoyable. So, yeah, if you've liked any of his other works, or if you like anything that is like science fiction or maybe not very hardcore science fiction, mostly kind of stuff like Star Wars, more so than stuff like Stargate or Star Trek, you'll probably end up enjoying this. And it's also just kind of one character. The books are short, and it's pretty simple to follow along. So if you're looking for something easy to read, but still pretty enjoyable, I do definitely recommend that you guys pick up any Edgar Rice Burroughs book, but specifically Tarzan, John Carter of Mars, and probably this one as well. So yeah, very classic, fun Edgar Rice Burroughs affair. So it gets a 4 out of 5 from me. And yeah, that's all I have to say. So thank you guys very much for watching, and see you guys later.